All right. You may have to accept. Do you have to accept anything?
Nope.
Excellent.
It says,
Well, let's begin.
okay.
So, uh, Ivy, welcome to These
Thank
Crazy
you.
Times. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here with you.
Excellent. And as I gave people an introduction and a little overview of you, I mentioned that you are currently the SVP of Comms and Content at the BASI,
Mhm.
but obviously that isn't always what you've done.
Right.
Uh, Take a little time, give us and tell us a little bit about your story so people get to know you before we jump into what I'm excited to talk about in this conversation.
So for me, I knew from a very young age that I had this natural curiosity to learn about people and figure out what it is, all of the things that they had been through in their life to get them to this very moment in time. So I especially love this question.
Yep.
Um, but it was that love of storytelling that led me to start writing for the school newspaper when I was still in school, and then have internships where I got to see what some careers in journalism and TV news was like. And then the majority of my career, I worked in a newsroom. I ended up leading. I was one of the station managers at a local news station here in New Jersey, and then when that sort of changed a little bit, I went into consulting where I got to still be a storyteller and still get important messages out, and then ultimately landed at the BASI, which is an incredible nonprofit doing such amazing work. And I feel very privileged and honored that I get to be the one to help tell the story of all the work that we're doing and the impact we have in our community and beyond.
I love it. So you hit through line number one, which is storytelling all the way through, helping people articulate, share their story, bring it to life, and sometimes even helping them find the words
Yes.
for the experience that they've had. And
Mhm.
I love that. And I think that's amazing. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you here and I wanted to have this conversation with you. But there's also another reason. And when I think most about one, how lucky it is for people get to hear from you and what you're about to share. And when I think of the thing I want them most to get from a conversation with you, the reason I want you here, it's because I think you have the clearest, most unique, most practical, and most beautiful take on happiness. And I want to be clear that means, and that's because you think and you believe in your heart of hearts that happiness is a choice.
Mm.
Tell me about that. And tell me a little bit about when that started and where that came from.
I love the way you phrase that. So thank you for saying it in that way. And
Sure.
thank you for feeling that way. It's funny because as you were saying that, I was thinking that I have had a lot of unhappy things happen in my life.
Okay.
Um, and I am divorced. My brother passed away more than 20 years ago, which has had a profound impact on my life and really the way I see the world. Um, but happiness to me is also tied to gratitude.
Mm,
And so I think that I learned from the bad things that happen, or I don't even like to say the bad things, from the things that I didn't want to happen that happened, or that I wasn't expecting and didn't plan for, certainly. Um, I think that what I've learned is we cannot control the things that happen to us, but
yep.
we always have the ability to control how we react. And a lot of people say that, right?
Yeah.
But what I think our life is an accumulation of our reactions to the things that
Oh, wow.
happen in life. And that is what your life becomes. And so two people who can experience very similar, if not identical circumstances can have two very different lives. And the difference is how they've chosen to react
Oh, wow.
to those circumstances. And I try my best to, when sometimes you need a moment to process, and
Of
that's
course.
fine. But I think that we have a finite amount of time and energy in this world, and I do my very best not to use that time and energy on things that I can't control. But I can control how I feel, and so that's where I like to invest those resources.
I love it. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by your reactions to
Yes.
those
Yeah.
moments.
Yes.
And so there's a few threads to pull on that. And so what I'd love to do is start with perhaps a memory or a moment where you remember really being intentional about your reaction and choosing it and choosing that happiness as sort of the next step in your interpretation and your reaction. There's many, obviously, but is there one that comes to mind? Is there a seminal or a salient moment?
You know, um, the one that comes to mind that is the most important one to me,
Okay.
it goes back to my brother.
Yeah.
And you know, I grew I grew up in a family where birthdays were always a really big deal. My
Yeah.
mom my
Nice.
mom loves a birthday.
Nice. Good.
And it's great until the person who you want to celebrate, whose birthday it is no longer here.
So,
And now all of a sudden there is a day that used to be filled with so much excitement and enthusiasm and love and celebration. And now you still have that, but you don't know what to do with it. And um it becomes an even sadder day, because not only are you missing that person, you're missing that celebration, that time that you use to just, pour all sorts of love and affection and celebration onto someone.
yeah.
And so for the first 10 years after my brother died, his birthday was actually an incredibly hard day. And I know a lot of people
Sure.
who experience loss, they understand that birthdays are
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
But my brother was so young, and my parents were young. I mean, I was in
You
my
were young.
20s when my brother passed away. Um, and so it felt like this can't be the rest of our lives, this much sadness on this day when my brother was someone who was so full of joy. And so we chose to flip the switch on what that day was and create a day that was not about mourning the
Yeah.
loss of my brother, but was about celebrating his life.
Celebrating
And
the
in
life.
doing that, we created Kind Like Mike Day. And
Love it.
it's one of the most beautiful things that I am a part of, not just because it's about my brother, because I see how
Yeah.
other people react to it and how other people want to be involved in it. And that's a choice. And it's listen, I say this, and I'm not even joking when I say this. I would trade, and become half a good a person as I am right now if I could have my brother back
I,
on this planet, right?
I
Without
believe
a
it.
question,
I
without
believe it.
without any question. Um, but not having my brother here has taught me about the value
Yeah.
of how we choose to view a situation. And people talk about turning pain into purpose.
Yeah.
That is a choice, but
Yeah.
that is where you can find happiness. The expression is, grief is love with nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Well, if you can
Oh,
find a
wow.
place to put that love, you now still get to live in
Yeah.
that space of the warmth of love, and not that
Yeah.
emptiness that the grief can cause.
Oh, wow. I've never heard that. Grief is love without a place to go. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I love it. And then as a result, you're carrying it, and love is the thing you want to give the most, and
yeah.
you're stuck holding it, which creates sort of that grief that you talk about.
So
That's a
it's so it's so
yeah,
but that's a choice, right? So
sure,
what do we choose to do with that? Do we
yeah,
choose to hold on to it and be sad?
yeah.
And sometimes you need to do that for a
You
little
you
while,
have to
right?
heal.
You
Yeah,
you have to do that for a little while. But at a certain point, when you have the ability to, you can choose to do something great with it. And now when I think about the things
yeah,
over the years, thousands of dollars have been raised for various charities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hundreds of small acts of kindness have been put out into the world. And that was all because we chose
Yeah.
to find some light in darkness.
Can I ask something about that?
Mhm.
Because you shared that for the first few years, it was an event for mourning, right?
Yeah.
And healing in a sense too. And it was only when you found yourself to and through that you were able to make a choice to then honor differently. Do you think that there's something about allowing yourself the space and grace to mourn that made the choice clearer, more definitive, and something you could really truly celebrate his life because you'd allowed some of that processing to happen?
I think it made for a more authentic choice,
Awesome.
because I think there are times when, and we all do this, when something bad happens and we're like, brush it off and move on, brush it off
Oh.
and move on. And there are times when you can do that and it works. But if you don't acknowledge that something happened, you're not really moving on. You're running away.
Yeah.
And that always, and then you're always running. You're always running. You have to keep moving, or the thing you're running away from all of a sudden, like,
Yeah.
is landing on your chest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think the ability to take some time and really sit with the grief enables you to say, okay, now I'm ready for what is next. And what
Yeah.
is next? And for some people, what is next is nothing, and that's okay.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
next is, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want this it
Doesn't
to
need to be a
like,
campaign.
and that's fine.
No.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. For some people, what's next is just continue to feel this way.
Yeah.
And that's the choice too. That's okay. The one thing I just do want to say is, I for me, I need to choose these things to be happy and to look at the world this way. But I pass no judgment on someone who
Yeah.
isn't in a place to do this,
Yeah.
because I understand what it's like to not be able to do that.
Yeah. And I want to hit the thing you keep sharing, which is the idea of the choice. And I think if it's your active, thoughtful choice that you want to process this event that happened by mourning at that, by praying, by whatever it is that you want to do, if you've given yourself the space to make that with a clearer head, because you've allowed yourself the space and grace to grieve, then I think whatever you choose is the right thing for you, because
Exactly.
you've actively and
Exactly.
authentically chosen it. And
Exactly.
there's no, there's no regrets. I want to take the conversation one more place, but I think everybody has to know. Can you talk about specifically what Kind Like Mike is
Yes.
and what the campaign is?
Yes.
I love it.
So
Yeah.
I anytime anyone asks me to talk about this, the answer is always yes.
Yeah.
So Kind Like Mike is a day, it's March 28th, and it's a day where all we ask is that you just are extra kind, and you are extra kind in my brother's memory. So in memory of Michael, Kind Like Mike. My brother was the kindest, like, person that I have ever known, and he was my younger brother, but was like big and loving, like he was my older brother, and very protective. And so on March 28th every year, to honor his legacy and to keep him with us, we just ask everyone to do some act of kindness in his name. And it also, the thing I love about it too is, I still want people to talk about my brother. I still want people to know that he existed. I still, I have friends who will, call me or text me on the day and say, just just brought back a shopping cart. And some guy was like, oh, you didn't have to do that. And they were like, no, it's Kind Like Mike Day. Mike was my friend's brother. And he was, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so exciting, because now, one of the things that journalism has taught me in years of telling stories is, at the end of the day, what we all want is, we just want to know that our life mattered, our life had some kind of value. And so to me, and that's very important to me, and to me, to know that my brother's life, although it was short, still has value, is still having a positive impact on the world. That to me is the greatest gift there is. And there are people who
Amazing.
have, funded scholarships in my brother's name, and
Yep.
there are people who, say that for on Kind Like Mike Day, they picked up the phone and they called a relative that they hadn't spoken to in a while because that's just in honor of the day, and those things and everything in between is so special and so magical.
I love it. Look, I think at some point, you know, uh, we are different people through the phase of our lives, but the thing, one of the most magical things we are is our memory and our legacy.
Yes.
And the beautiful part about that is it's where we truly lose the ability to shape who we are. It's left to who we were and the energy we left
Yep.
in the world. And so I love that you've carried that, and now other people are carrying that.
Yes.
And I think
Thank you.
that's beautiful.
And thank
And
you also. I have to say, you also always participate every year, and I have to say
of
thank you very
course,
much. It means so
absolutely,
much to me.
the kids have their shirts. The kids have their
Yes, that's right. That's right.
if I can, let's, what's beautiful about this also is I started by talking about your beautiful connection, clear and beautiful connection to happiness. And some of the stuff we just talked about wasn't very happy.
Right.
And what I love about it is in your connection and relationship to happiness, it is not that you are always happy.
Mm.
It is that happiness can pretty much always still be a choice.
Yeah.
And I love that. And that's the distinction. Is it's not, we've used the word authentic, we've talked about a bunch of things, but it is always potentially at least available to us in some capacity. And the story of your brother and Mike is an example, is a beautiful example of that. When you think about happiness and wrestling with happiness, what are other times, where have you seen it? Where have you seen this wrestling in others? You're a storyteller. You've watched others go on this journey, and where have you seen it in your work? Where have you seen other people struggle with it and come to terms with it? Or what has watching their struggles done for you? Take it the direction you'd like.
The some of the best stories that I have had the privilege of telling over the years have been about people who were in a tough situation and then made a choice to find their own way out of it.
Yeah.
So, I always think about, like, sometimes you say a word and you have like an image of like what that word is in your head. And my one of my go-to images of happiness is of this 6-year-old girl. And I know you've heard this story before, but
Yeah.
she's a 6-year-old girl who had special needs, and her mom, she wanted to take dance lessons, and her mom called the dance schools in the area, and they all said, we don't know how to teach a girl with special needs, so she can't come here. And so
Yeah.
then the mom did another radius, like a little bit further away, and she said she called dozens and dozens of schools. No one had a program, and all she saw was her daughter getting disappointed, and she just wanted to dance, and she decided that she wasn't going to let outside circumstances decide what her daughter's capability was, and what she knew was going to bring her daughter so much joy. She wasn't going to so she made the choice to say, okay, you're not going to help me, I'm going to do this on my own. And so she started this program. Turns out, not very surprising, there were a lot of other
A lot of
parents in the
people.
same situation who wanted their children to be able to experience the joy of dancing.
Yeah.
And I remember we were doing the story, and this little girl, it gets me choked up when I think about it. She, had like the dance outfit on, and like the tutu or whatever.
Yeah.
And we had the camera on her. And I said to her, how do you feel? And she said to me, she spun around without any problem. She spun around and she said, I am a beautiful dancer. And it makes me cry thinking about it, because that is the the joy of a child and the determination of a mother to not let the world decide what was going to
Yeah.
either make or prevent her daughter from being joyful.
Oh,
And like the most purest, this she all she
just,
wanted was, the name of the piece we did was called A Chance to Dance. All this girl wanted was a chance to dance. And
yeah.
so, and I think about people like that. After Sandy,
Yeah.
when so much of our area was
Yeah.
devastated, and I was working at the news station, and we did a drive, and we just started collecting things with the Salvation Army, just asking people bring whatever you could. But the thing that will stay with me for the rest of my life is how many people we were in parking lots. We did 3 different days in different mall parking lots. How many people would make a donation, drop something off, go park their car, and then come over to help us, like either with sorting or whatever. And the number of people who did that, who were there and had lost everything themselves, but decided that in that moment, the way they were going
Yeah.
to
Show
make
up.
things feel better about life
Yeah.
was to start helping other people. And I think about that all the time. And you know that I do this too. When I am having a very bad day,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
when I am super
My
stressed,
coffee. Yeah.
when whatever is happening, right? I'm like, I need 10 minutes. And I go to either Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or whatever. I go to some coffee drive-through. I get a coffee or a tea for myself, and I say, I'd like to pay for the person behind me. I have no idea what they ordered, what it is. And my goal is to leave before they realize that this has happened, because I
Yeah.
don't want them to talk to me about it. I'm not looking for
Yeah.
a thank you. I'm looking in that moment for me to realize that even when I'm having a horrible day, even when things are not going my way, even when I'm stressed, even when I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this one, I still have the ability to put a little bit of joy into the world. And there's nothing that makes me feel more grateful and just happier than that. And it's a complete mind shift. And that to me is, I mean, you talk about choosing, like that's a choice in that moment to say, it's too much about me. I'm too much in my own head, worried about my own things. I need to do
Yeah.
something for someone else. And
Yeah.
that always does the trick for me, always.
I love it. So I don't think I haven't shared this with many people. My wife knows it, but when I have a bad day, I will stay awake until midnight, and try and do or say something nice for someone at 12 or 12:01.
Mhm.
Make sure I start the next day off on a positive
I
foot.
love that.
And that's like, those are the kinds of small choices that we make. Look, the entire premise of this podcast is we are in extraordinary times, these
Yeah.
crazy times. And so I'd love to talk about, how do you see these current times? How do you process them? And maybe most importantly, what I want folks to hear from you is, what is it about your relationship with happiness that helps you navigate these crazy times?
I think part of it is, um, it's so easy to get overwhelmed
Yeah.
by the
Oh, wow.
craziness. We'll just call it the craziness, right? It's
Okay.
it's easy to get overwhelmed by the craziness, by the things that we disagree with, by the things that are happening that should not be happening. Um, and when you think about solving the world's problems, you
Yeah.
cannot do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you
It's
feel
too much.
helpless. You feel helpless, and then it's very easy to feel like, well, what's the point? But what's happening in the rest of the world is still going to happen, but there are also things that are happening right in our own spheres,
Yeah.
our own networks, our own communities. And what I have found is doing things to have a positive impact into the people around me. Number
Yeah.
one, makes the world feel a little bit smaller,
Yeah.
because we realize what the connection really is. It reminds me that at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and even though we
Yeah.
might disagree about different things, we all still like the kindness of a
Yeah.
cup of coffee, or
Yeah.
I like to volunteer various, but you realize that like we still have the ability to do that. And I'd like to think, and this is maybe a little, naive of me, but I do like to think that if everyone would just like take a time out and spend a few hours just volunteering and helping the people who are around them,
Yeah.
the world, I mean, think of all the good that would happen in the world, but we would also realize that like we can argue all day long if we want. At the end of the day, we're still connected by more than what divides us. And taking the time to help, whether it's volunteering or coaching little league, whatever it is that you
Yeah.
do that kind of gets you involved and gives you the ability to have a positive impact on someone. I think for me, that's how I deal with it. And when
Yeah.
people ask me this question, I say, if you're overwhelmed by what's happening in the world, yes, still pay attention, still know what's going
Yep.
on, but zoom in and
Yeah.
focus on something that is there. It's also when you do it close to home,
Yeah.
it feels like you're making your world a better place too.
And look, while the world radiates in, maybe we can
Yes.
radiate out, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
and I think
And then
that's
there's the ripple effect too, right? Like
yep,
who knows?
yep,
You might do something good.
yeah,
One of my favorite videos that gets every once in a while I feel like it goes viral and it kind of comes up
yeah,
on my social media feeds again. It's the one where someone sees someone doing a good deed and they get so inspired. Not the good deed didn't happen to them. They
yeah,
just see someone being kind and
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
inspires them to then be kind.
Hold the
And you just see
door.
that,
Yeah,
yes, and you
yeah,
see how that trickles down and down until eventually it's like, 10 people later, and
yeah.
this person is the recipient of a good deed that really started because 3 hours ago someone opened a door for someone who needed help. And I think the world works like that.
It does. I mean, look, the world is defined by energy, and I think what you put out is important. And I love the emphasis on, look, when the big picture feels crazy, we'll say crazy because we're talking about these crazy
Yeah.
times. One choice is to zoom in. And I think it's even what's interesting about that is the zoom lens works both ways.
Yes.
When you're in the heat of the moment in an acute argument or an intense experience, sometimes the best thing to do is actually zoom out
Yes.
and get context, right? And I think that zoom lens perspective for all of us is super powerful.
Yeah.
For someone, I mean, you've given some of this perspective already. I don't think you can help but share your just this beautiful perspective you have. But for someone listening who's struggling to find that, way to navigate, what would you want them to hear from you and to take from this conversation?
So this is I'm going to share with you something that I don't think you and I have talked about yet
Okay.
but it's something that's been on my mind and on my heart lately. I'm approaching a big birthday, which has me thinking, you get very reflective when
Yep. Yep.
big birthdays happen. Um, I think, when we're younger, we sort of map out our lives and we think our
Yeah.
lives are going to be as a certain way, and we assign these milestones
Sure.
and think that if we do this by this, then we'll have this amount of happiness, and if we do this by this, then we'll be even happier, and then we'll do this and that. These are all the things that will make us happy. And I am at a point in my life where I look back and I think, my life is probably nothing at all like what I thought it was going to be when I
Yeah.
was, 15, 18, even
Yeah.
25 years old, thinking about what
Yeah.
my life was going to be. And I think there was probably a time in my life where I thought that there was sadness about that, and that
Mhm.
uh I don't have the things that I thought I would
Yeah.
have. I didn't do some of the things that I
Didn't
thought
follow the
I
plan.
was going to
Yeah.
do. I didn't follow the plan.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when I think about it now, I'm like, yeah, there are things that I wanted that didn't happen for sure. But my God, there's so much that I have done that
Yeah.
15-year-old me didn't even know was
Couldn't even
possible for
fathom.
me to do.
Couldn't even
Like
fathom. Yeah.
I couldn't even do that. So I'm at this point in my life now where I'm like, let's not get so caught up in grieving the life we didn't have that we're not celebrating the life we do have.
Amen.
And that is, and that is really where I'm at. And when I think of my life through that lens, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm so incredibly grateful for so much. And I have a very strong faith, and I think everything happens for a reason. And I am starting to understand a little bit about what some of those reasons are, because I'm
Sure.
seeing the work that I'm able to do, the relationships that I'm able to have, the impact that, hopefully I'm able to have. Those things wouldn't be possible if the life I imagined would have come true. I'm not saying that wouldn't have been a good life, but
Yeah.
it's different, and
It's
it's
different.
okay. It's still really, 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 really good.
I love that. And I think the contrast and I think the context, this idea that even with strong faith, like there's no cruise control switch. Like you're
No.
still making active, intentional choices
Yeah.
all the way through.
Yeah.
And so I love that it's not a fallback on faith. It's an active engagement with your
Yeah.
faith. And I appreciate that. Talk to me about something that you're still wrestling with, something you want to tackle next or get better at, and through the lens of celebrating the life you have instead of grieving the life you didn't, or happiness. What's something, we're all works in progress. What's
Mm.
something that you're still wrestling with and want to work on?
Well, since we mentioned a legacy already,
Yeah.
and I mentioned my milestone birthday coming up.
Happy
Legacy is
happy
something.
25th. Happy 25th.
Thank you. But legacy is something that I've started thinking a lot about over the last couple of years, and part of it is because I don't have children.
Yeah.
I wanted children. It was not in the cards for me. That was one of the things that, young Ivy thought was going to happen,
Sure.
and it took me a little while to accept that. And and I'm good with it now. But children are a key part of our legacy.
Yeah.
And so I sometimes think about, well, when my time here is done,
Yeah.
will my life have had value to that is worth noting? Will I have left some mark?
Yeah.
Will I have made some difference in someone's life, so that everything that I've done will have meant something more than just,
Yeah. Yeah.
the 24 hours of a day to me.
Yeah.
I do think a lot about that. I think I'm getting closer to
Nice.
Understanding different types of legacy, but if I'm being honest, that is still something that I struggle. And but I think we all struggle with that. I think even people with children are still struggling, like,
Quite
what is the meaning of not what is the meaning of life, what is the meaning of my life,
right. Yeah.
and what have I made the most of my time?
Yeah.
And have I done everything I can to bring comfort and joy
Yeah.
to other people? Have I am I living in gratitude to the point where I'm able to see all of the things, not only that are around me, but that I've been that I'm able to give, right? Gratitude
Yeah.
also means your ability to give. And
Yeah.
so that's my current struggle.
I love it. I mean, I think it's fair as you progress through different stages of life. There is, I talk about it in my classes in terms of mindsets, and there's
Mhm.
fixed mindset, which is the limits of my potential and who I am. There's growth mindset, which is the upper bounds and the potential of who I am. And then there's purpose mindset, which is the legacy of who I was, right? And what I've left behind. And so I think we migrate through those appropriately. And so it's natural that you're thinking about that. And I have no
Oh,
doubt.
so you're saying I'm normal?
I'm saying you're normal on this in this regard.
In this
Just on
regard,
this,
perfect. That's
just
all.
on this
One step at a
very
time.
narrow
Just-
thread, very
Fine.
narrow thread, we found a shred of normalcy.
Thank God.
Let's hang our hats on that because I don't know if it's happening again.
It probably will not.
Will not. So one thing I want to do as we close is I want to leave people with something they can carry with them.
Okay.
I want, just like I have, carry you with me and your advice and counsel and perspective. If you could point someone to one thing you think they should read right now,
Mhm.
what would it be? And let's do three things. One thing they should read, one thing they should listen to or watch,
Okay.
or one thing they can do, right? So go for it.
All right. So I had to look up the author because I often say his name incorrectly. There is a book that I have given to more people. Have I given it to you? I think I've given it
No.
to you.
No,
Oh,
but I know
I think I keep talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you this book. So, okay, now I promise I will give it to you. But it's a children's book. You can read it in 10 minutes. It will change your entire life. It is called Maybe.
Yeah.
It is by the author Kobe Yamada. It is a book that, in very few words, because it is a children's book,
Sure.
reinforces the idea that because you are on this earth,
Yeah.
the world is better. And who knows what you'll accomplish? All that matters is that there has never been anyone like you. There will never be anyone exactly who you are. And that is like the most wonderful thing to celebrate.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, I've never heard that book. Maybe. There's so many amazing kids books out there on these sorts of topics.
This one, I read this book. Who knows how many times I've read this book already. It makes me cry. I know the page that makes me cry every single time. I get like a little from it,
Yeah.
and it's really, really good. And I feel horrible that I have not yet given you this book, but it's on its
That's
way.
okay.
It's on its way.
That's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Talk about something someone should listen to, or watch, a song, a podcast, a show, or a clip.
I'm going to plug my podcast here.
Yeah,
My
let's go.
podcast is called Big Little Stories. And the reason why I'm plugging it is not because it's something that I do, but it's because the purpose of that podcast for me is to really do what I think storytelling does so beautifully when it's done well,
Yeah.
which is inspire, educate, and build community. And the people who I get to talk to when I'm doing that podcast are people who, for me, make me think, wow, this person is doing some extraordinary things, and they're making an impact just by living their lives. Big Little Stories. It's big, but it's just your life. But that's my own shameless plug.
It's a great show. Can you explain Big Little Stories? Why? Like the contrast? Why that?
So, when I was again, going back to my days as a journalist, although once a journalist, always a journalist. But when I was working as a journalist, I was always the most fascinated by people who were changing the world, changing their community, having an impact, simply because they were living their life on purpose. They were living their life by doing the things that they just needed to do. They were trying to do the right thing. They were trying to make things better. And they were doing it because that's what they needed to do. And then somehow that was having, not somehow, but it was having a trickle effect around the people around them. And I think that, the concept of a big little story, we're all living our little lives, right? When you think about like the grand scheme of the entire universe, our lives are so little and tiny, but we have the ability to make them bigger just by living with gratitude and with our hearts open and doing things to make the world a better place.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the contrast, that concept of Big Little Stories, and I love who you feature and bring to life. And the last thing is, what's a practice? I think you covered it with the Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts example, but put a bow on that for people. What does that look like?
Before I figured out the drive-through the drive-through method, I was always I would be in like a newsroom or in the control room, and there would be crazy breaking news, and I would think like, oh my God, we're not like, I don't know, like how what's gonna happen? I don't know what's gonna, and I would in that moment say, I need like 10 seconds. And literally 10 seconds. And I just need to think of three things that I'm grateful for in this very moment. And
Yeah.
thinking of those three things. And
Yeah.
sometimes it was like just my simple, like my go-tos, like my family, my dog,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, and but I'm fascinated by how just the 10 seconds it
Yep.
takes to say, let me just be grateful. Sometimes just saying, let me think of what I'm grateful for. And then just, even if it's just a flash of those images in your head, completely changes your mindset and resets you to the point where now the chaos that was around you
Yeah.
feels more manageable. It doesn't necessarily solve everything, but it puts you in, it better positions you to deal with whatever it is in front of you to deal with, because you're coming from a grounded place
Yeah.
where you already know you've sort of like reevaluated your life in that quick second, and like, listen, I'm good. I can
Yeah.
deal with this. It might be difficult, but I got it.
It hits the discussion we had about zooming in and zooming out,
Yeah,
which is
absolutely.
when you're facing that sort of extraordinary circumstance, zoom out a little bit and look at the world that you truly
Yeah.
live, the truth of your, of your universe, and you'll find those things to be grateful for,
Yeah.
which will take that thing that feels massive and huge and make it feel a little bit more smaller and manageable. And I
Yeah.
think that's powerful framing. Ivy, thanks for doing this.
I love talking to you. I could talk to you all day long.
This was a great conversation, and I hope people got what I wanted them to get out of it, which is what you do for happiness is you make it real, you make it authentic, you make it accessible. And then you show people how important and powerful it can actually be. And that's why I wanted you here. And I appreciate you.
Well, listen, the one thing we didn't talk about, which is a key part of this, is having people in your life who also share in that viewpoint. And so when I think of the people I'm very blessed to call my friends who fit that description, you're at the top of the list. So thank you.
Appreciate you, buddy. Amazing. All right, I'm going to stop recording.
Okay.